On October 7th, Hamas, the Palestinian militant group, launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing over 1,200 people and taking more than 200 hostage. In response, Israel has declared a war on Hamas and has been pounding the Gaza Strip since then, both from the air and on the ground. The death toll in Gaza has now crossed 11,000, with a majority of them being women and children. A number of Arab countries have called for a ceasefire, while the United Nations Security Council has called for humanitarian pauses in Gaza. 6 weeks into the war, what is India's position on the Israel-Palestine conflict? And why does it appear to be shifting? To explain this, I'll be joined by Suhasini Haidar, diplomatic editor at The Hindu. Before I get into India's present position on the Israel-Palestine conflict, some quick history. India has long supported the Palestinian cause, and this has been an integral part of its foreign policy. In 1947, India voted against the United Nations resolution to create the State of Israel. It became the first non-Arab country to recognize the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, as the representative of Palestinians in the 1970s. Then in 1988, it became one of the first countries to recognize the State of Palestine. It was only in 1992 that India established a full diplomatic relationship with Israel. Since then, New Delhi's engagement with Tel Aviv has grown, especially in the defense and tech sectors. For decades now, India has walked a tightrope between the two sides, balancing its strategic ties with Israel even as it continues to support the Palestinian cause and advocate for the two-state solution. So how has India reacted to the present conflict? Prime Minister Narendra Modi was quick to react to Hamas's attack on Israel, taking to X just hours later to say that India stands in solidarity with Israel. Days later, the Ministry of External Affairs clarified that India continued to support a two-state solution to the conflict. On October 27th, India abstained from a UN General Assembly resolution calling for a humanitarian truce and a ceasefire in Gaza. The abstention was seen as a major shift in how India has traditionally voted in favor of Palestinian resolutions. India justified its abstention, saying that it could not vote for a resolution that did not include an explicit condemnation of the October 7th attack by Hamas. But just 2 weeks later, India went on to vote in favor of draft resolutions at the UN, criticizing Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory. Just FYI, there was no explicit condemnation of the Hamas attack in these draft resolutions. So what explains India's shifting positions on the Israel-Palestine conflict? I spoke with Suhasini Haidar, diplomatic editor at The Hindu, to understand. Listen in.
Well, to start with, I'm not sure India's position has always been a balancing act when it comes to Israel and Palestine, because at different parts of history, or at least of the last 75 years, India has taken, I would say, a moving position. It's an evolving position, if you like, and it still remains to be seen exactly, where that position will go and stop. Now, these United Nations votes tend to be extremely complex, and they're over a wide range of issues. And what I think has happened in the last month, if you like, when people ask, is India shifting its position? I would say the most stark difference has been how India has behaved on Israel's operations in Gaza. Because when it comes to India's reactions to the Hamas terror attacks on October 7th that left 1,200 to 1,400 Israelis dead, so many hostages, 240 hostages were taken as well. India has been very clear about its principled stand on terrorism, and that is an old stand of India's. And as a victim of terrorism, India has often reached out to countries that have been attacked in a similar way. However, when it comes to the Israeli bombardment of Gaza, in the past, India had voted for resolutions, including in, I think, 2018, there was a resolution asking Israel to cease fire, to stop the bombing of Gaza. At that time, Israel said it was in response to rocket attacks that had caused many casualties in Israel from Hamas in Gaza. And in that time, India had voted for the resolution, but on, I think, 26th or 27th of October, India's vote was to abstain from the resolution. I think that was the big shift. As far as the more recent resolutions you referred to, there were 6 resolutions. In 5 out of 6, India voted for those resolutions. Those resolutions deal really mostly with Israeli settlements, the settlers' policy, in the West Bank, in the occupied territories, including Syrian Golan. It related to Syrian Golan. It related to Palestinian refugees, the UNRWA agency that deals with them. On all of those, India voted for those resolutions, but those resolutions, of course, come up on an annual basis, and India has traditionally always voted for them. So there's been no shift in those. There is one resolution on the investigation of Israel for human rights violations, particularly under the international criminal courts. That's something India is not a party to, and tends to vote to abstain in those. So India did again. So I would say, in the sum, India's votes have been a little bit of confusion, if you like, because on the one hand, India has said that they stand with their traditional positions when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to the Palestinian cause, or to the two-state solution. On the other hand, on this very specific vote, I think on the 26th of October, where India did not vote for a ceasefire, did not vote calling for Israel to stop the bombardment of Gaza. And remember, in this entire month, we've seen more than 14,000, I think it is, Palestinians have been killed in that bombardment. India voted to abstain. And I think that's where there is some confusion about what India's position is, particularly when you compare it to, say, the neighborhood. Every other country, including Bhutan, voted for the resolution. If you look at the BRICS Plus that India is a part of, every other country voted for. In Asia, the ASEAN, most of them voted for, I think, other than Philippines. West Asia, of course, and even if you look in the global South. So that's where I think a lot of the controversy has arisen about India moving its position in a more pro-Israel fashion, and Israel certainly thanked India and welcomed the vote.
India has been inching closer towards Israel since 1992, but there's been a marked shift towards Tel Aviv since Prime Minister Modi came to power in 2014. India's abstention in the October 27th resolution signifies this pivot, despite some contradictions by New Delhi.
Well, I think the government, the Modi government since 2014 has made it clear that it will have a much closer relationship with Israel than governments of the past. Of course, as I said, since 1992, there's been a certain shift in favor of Israel. Certainly in terms of increasing the amount of trade, increasing the amount of relationships, increasing the science and technology, all kinds of relationships have opened up. We've also seen political visits. So while I think in 2003 we saw Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon visit India, it was in Prime Minister Modi's tenure that he became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel. He also then visited Palestine a few months later. And we've seen at this political level a lot of visits back and forth, much closer ties on a number of issues. As I said, trade, defense, intelligence and surveillance as well. If you remember the controversy over the Pegasus program. I think also for the government, it's political, the ruling parties, the BJP's political ideology has also always been aligning with Israel. And you saw some of that come out in the first few days after the terror attacks in terms of the support for Israel. And I think as far as the relationship, as far as what explains the vote, that would be one part of it. Even so, there are some contradictions. For example, the government said while explaining its vote in the UNGA that it has a zero tolerance policy on terrorism, and therefore could not vote for a resolution that actually does not specifically, and it said explicitly condemns the Hamas terror attacks. But it didn't use the term Hamas terror attacks in its own explanation of vote. They didn't refer to Hamas at all. In the Prime Minister's own statements since then, if you look at Twitter or the other statements after readouts with other leaders, he also does not refer to the Hamas terror attacks. It does seem like that is the vote that was done at the UNGA was much more about just showing support to Israel at that particular point of time, without necessarily it indicating a shift in policy straight away, because it seems as if that policy, as I said, a little bit confusing, is still evolving. I think that would be absolutely true, that in the last 10 years, India has moved much closer to Israel. But I would also put the rider that since 1992, there has been a slow progression in ties between India and Israel. It may have been a little faster in the past decade.
Since the war broke out, Prime Minister Modi has spoken to a number of world leaders, including those from the Middle East. And yet, despite India taking pride in hosting the G20 summit this year and the Voice of the Global South summit, many believe that India's role in the Israel-Palestine conflict has been rather lacking.
I think certainly if there is one area where you are seeing a real lack of an Indian position making a difference, it is in India's voice in the current Israel-Palestine conflict. We spoke earlier about India's traditional role over the past 7.5 decades that always spoke at the forefront of the world when it came to the Israel-Palestine conflict, when it came to injustice, when it came, as I said, to this demand for a ceasefire to stop the daily bombing of people. And that's one place where India perhaps could have played a role, because it's one of the few countries that has these very close ties with both Israel and with Palestine. As I said, the Prime Minister went to Israel. A few months later, he went to Palestine. He had visits from both the leaders in India as well. So where India could have played a role, somehow it seems as if the government has chosen not to. Some have, in fact, we were talking about the idea of this principled stand on any of these issues. Some have pointed out that this is exactly like what India did over the issue of Russia's operations in Ukraine last year, where India essentially abstains with the idea of saying, at least it does not overly antagonize either side over it. But that's not the same as having a voice, as having a position. As you pointed out, India is the host of the G20, the host of the Voice of the Global South summit. If the entire Global South voted one way and India didn't, is India missing an opportunity to be that voice, to be the leader when it comes to these United Nations decisions? But even so, the fact that people went and made their position clear in large numbers, 145 voting for a resolution, and India decided not to, but then decided not to also make a stronger position, is seen by many as a sort of backing away or shying away from having a sort of strong and forceful voice on the global stage on this issue.
Many, including several opposition leaders in the country, say that India must not take the middle path and stay neutral, and that it cannot abandon Palestinians in their hour of need. It has a moral and a historical obligation towards the people of Palestine. And if India truly wants to be a global leader, it cannot afford to sit on the sidelines and be a spectator. How the Modi government responds to the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza will be watched closely in the coming days.
News Laundry, the News Minute.
News Laundry,
The News Minute,
News Laundry and the News Minute
are coming together.
साथ आ रहे हैं.
5 states, 2 independent media organizations, and 1 team.
so log on to newslaundry.com,
Contribute to the News Minute and News Laundry Election Fund, Joint Election Fund,
TNM, NL,
Joint Election Fund.
तो हमारा सहयोग करें. Contribute now.
because we are stronger together.
क्योंकि साथ साथ मिलकर ही हम सब मजबूत होंगे.
क्योंकि सागे आपा मजबूत रेसा.
Kalisi untene balanga untam.
we're stronger together.
And we're even stronger with you.